Hi, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you joined me to go through my Unsexy income property workshop. So I made this workshop for people who really want to know, how do I get started? I have no idea what to do. So uh, I decided I have all these questions that are asked of me all the time about how do I get started in buying an income property. So I would love to put this workshop together for people just like you. So please, let's get started. And if you have any questions, let me know. You can ask at the end or message me, PM, whatever you want, text me. I'm open for questions. So I'm breaking down the real estate concepts for first-time investors. So if that's you, you're in the right place. Just want to explain a little bit more about why I called this workshop Unsexy, because this is what it actually looks like, real time, working on properties. If you're a hands-on person like me, you actually get down and dirty, literally, and get down in the dirt, in the yards, in the house itself when you buy an income property. And that way, when I decided to get a house like this, a property that needed work, I was all for it. I knew it had to be hands-on. I would save a lot of money if I did a lot of the labor myself. Of course, I had friends and family help me as well. Thank you. That always helps. But in the end, it really helps you save money. And that's why I decided I wanted an income property that needed a little bit of work that I could actually do it. So if you're new to any kind of renovation, it's really not hard. If I can do it, you can absolutely do it. If you have two hands, you can carry a hammer, carry a drill, you're good to go. So it's just, trial and error. Sometimes you got to do stuff, sometimes it doesn't work, and you have to be okay with it. So let's get started. So really, feeling unsexy is, sometimes it's hard work. You feel like crying. You really have to have determination and stay the course. And making the money, once you see that you can make money from doing this and saving money by doing it yourself, I think is super sexy. So I take that away. It's not unsexy. It is very sexy. Hope you agree with that. So who this workshop is for, again, it's for people who are just interested in becoming income property owners. Anyone who's thinking of becoming a landlord, that's the daunting part of it. People who have they already have a property and they decide, okay, I just got a call a couple days ago. How do I do this? What do you think my house is worth? Can I rent it? I'm like, yeah, great, but I have to come and see it. I have to take a look at the house, and then I can give you a proper analysis of what I think it could rent for. So lots of people like that, people who want to make money just through real estate, and how do we do it? So I love those questions. Always ask, always get in touch with me, and I will absolutely take you through the course of how to do it. And so today's agenda, really, we have to step back a little bit, and you really have to, before you get started, this took me about 3 years to realize that what I wanted out of a rental property, I really had to go back and dissect what I really wanted. And that actually took me 3 years because I kept looking for the wrong properties. It was not my personality. So I had to come up with an avatar before I picked the property that I actually ended up buying. Took me 3 years, but that's, we can go into that later. The other thing too, I don't know if you saw this, the picture of the green room. So just keep this in mind when you're looking at properties. If you're out to make money, this is gold. To see a house like this, a lot of people would be turned off because of the wallpaper, because of the carpet, but you're not looking at that. You're looking at the bones of the property. You're looking at the high ceilings. You're looking at the large room. You are peeking under the carpet to see if there's actually hardwood under there. This could be a gem, this house. And older houses, in my opinion, are built a little bit better. And I'm not talking about 1800s built. I'm talking about houses that were built in the 60s and the 70s. That, to me, and especially in the GTA, that's a sweet spot. You can get some beautiful, beautiful houses in that era. And as you know, the GTA right now is crazy expensive. So this is not just about the GTA. This is about, in general, what you want to buy and where you want to buy. Excuse me. So this picture shows you it's cosmetic. You get rid of the wallpaper, you brighten up the room. Of course, they added this beautiful door to bring in lots of natural light, but this ceiling height, they opened it up. So really, when you look at a space like this, of course, wouldn't you rather, it's the end user, wouldn't you rather live in this house and get a tenant, or even flip this kind of house and really live in this, or would you rather live in this? So obviously you want to always renovate a house to bring the most buyers, the most people who want to stay there, the most tenants that are qualified and want to. This is a high end, let's say this is a rental. This is a very high end rental. So you are going to get a better tenant when the house looks like this than if you want to get a tenant to go into this room. So keep that in mind. Now, I honestly, who am I? I specialize in helping people grow their wealth by investing in residential real estate. I always provide ongoing knowledge and support throughout the process, even after the process. My name is Colette Rabba. I'm a real estate broker, and my company is Orion Realty Corporation. That's the brokerage. I'm full-time, I'm full service. I do residential, not commercial. I have over 8 years real estate experience, and I also have 2 income properties. So I'm not, this crazy multimillionaire. I've had so many rentals and so many doors and so many income properties. This is something that I'm a typical person that I have 1 or 2 income properties. I'm really not interested in getting more than that, maybe 1 more, but honestly, my plate is full. I'm very happy with 2. I'm not going crazy and having, this big, conglomerate of residential properties. That's not who I am. Maybe that's you, and that's no problem. Really, once you have a couple income properties, you should really hire someone to manage them for you, because it is, if you have a full-time job too. If that's your full-time job, then no problem. But when it comes to over 2, I find the time to take care of them is a lot. So always hire someone if you really need to have someone to help you with those properties. And that way they can stay on top of the rents, they can stay on top of the tenants, and really keep you informed. And that really should be your job, but that's in the future. So right now, let's try and get one under your belt. I also help landlords. That's my job as a real estate agent. I not only buy and sell properties, but I also help them find tenants. I don't help tenants. I don't go represent tenants on their side. I'm too busy for that. But I do help landlords, and I have very good leases. I have very good clauses in my leases. I vet the tenants for the landlords. So my eyes, when you hire me to find you a tenant, my eyes are very, very keen, and I can say no to people. So to hire a residential real estate agent to rent your properties, that's a whole other story, but we'll talk about that later if you need to have more information about that. So right now, also I help short-term landlords. So if somebody wants to start up let's say an Airbnb, so I can help them guide that. There's no extra money for me. Maybe I should. I should really think about that. Maybe I'll make another course for that. I also have a background in renovating and interior decorating, and I love gardening. So you also get that information and that knowledge when you buy and sell a property before you even get an inspector. So I walk through the house, I walk outside of the house, and I tell you what I see, what I don't like, what kind of plants you even have in the garden. I also have owned and operated several businesses before I got into real estate. So I treat my rentals as a business. So that's a whole other thing too, that you really should be thinking about that before you get started in buying an income property. It's not for fun. This is a business. So you're typically opening a new business. Oh yeah, and of course I raised a couple of kids, as you can see in the pictures, and some pets too along the way. And my goal is to help my clients find their first home or income property in a knowledgeable, stress-free, and fun experience. So past clients, they might agree with that. So I try to make it fun anyway. So this slide, I just wanted to tell you that people don't know the statistics about Canadians and how we, in general, how many people actually own a secondary property. So this is not, this is a very broad kind of statistic. So when you look at it, though, it really is quite interesting. I found it very interesting. So 13% in the Greater Toronto Area, GTA is where we are, also in Vancouver and Montreal, own more than one property. So that's 13%. It's not a huge percent, but it's actually pretty good. I was surprised by that. I didn't think it was even 13%. And then more than 40% of secondary property owners in the GTA in Vancouver and 21% in the Montreal area use equity from their primary residence to make the secondary purchase. That's me. I bought my second property through my home equity line of credit on my primary residence. That's very, very interesting. And that's 40%. That's a big number. Also, 64% in the GTA are collecting rental income at least some of the time. So that is kind of a broad statistic, only because rental incomes, you won't rent them 100% of the time, especially Airbnb. You have, let's say, a season, and it might not be the whole year. So that statistic, even 64% are collecting rent some of the time. It's kind of a vague statistic, but still, it's good to know. It's good to know. So let's get started. The first thing that you want to find is what is right for you and your lifestyle. That is something that when I go to other workshops, I don't see anybody explaining that. So you really have to ask yourself, do I want to be hands-on? Do I have the time to do all this? How is it going to look? Where do I want the property? There's a ton of questions. So we'll go through that right now. So you really have to look at your lifestyle, but also what you think is right for you and what you can afford. I think that ultimately is the decision maker right there. Can I afford a sixplex? Can I afford a residential house in the burbs right now? Can the property be converted into multiple units? Does the work need a lot of cosmetics, or is it a total teardown? So these are the things when you start looking at the house, depending on your budget, what you can afford, where. These are the things that you really want to consider. Think about unique selling features. If you want a vacation property, of course you need to have a unique selling feature. Maybe you want to have a house that has a gym in it. There's a possibility for a gym. So you know what kind of tenant will be attracted to that. Also, what kind of property is in a good area versus in a bad area, or what kind of tenant can I get if I get a property, let's say in the heart of Toronto? Am I going to get a small family that will move into a small condo? Probably not. You're going to be looking at a single person. So all these things, you really have to build your avatar before you choose any property to know if it's right for you. So again, this is what type of property that you're looking for. And these are the questions that you can jot down. You can take a look and write these questions down and ask yourself later. Take a couple notes. So you can ask yourself, what kind of property can I afford right now? Where do I want it? Do I want it to be close to home so I can go and take a look at it? If you want a vacation property, how far away? Do you want to fly there? Do you want to drive there? Who's coming to this vacation property? That's another question you should ask yourself about a short-term accommodation or short-term rental. And what kind of tenant do you want? Do you want a long-term tenant, or do you want somebody that is only short-term and only, let's say, weekly, and that's a vacation property? Who can I envision being my tenant? I have a very specific avatar for both my properties, and I'll explain that to you later. And do you want to be a silent investor? That's absolutely possible as well. Or do I want to just buy something and not rent it? Right now, real estate, you can buy, you pay the bills if you have a mortgage on it, pay out the mortgage. You don't have to rent it at all. So you don't need to be a landlord. Maybe you just want to buy a piece of property, land with no house on it. So that's something else. So once you know what you're looking for, the search will go much easier. If you don't know what you want, you should start with your budget. That's always the first thing. Then location, so budget, location, and then your ideal tenant. And they should all work together. And then if they don't, then we got to go back to square one. And then what type of income are you looking for? So obviously we have the handyman picture here. We want growth. We want the price to grow. We want to be, turnkey. And we also want it to be something that you can manage. So the 4 types of income properties, where you rent the space to the tenant, either long-term or short-term. Hands off, do you want to be a silent investor? We talked about that earlier. That's easy. You can just, send somebody your money and they'll take care of it. And then they'll give you a return depending on the contract that you sign. Do you want to fix and flip? Maybe that works for you, where you can just buy a house. You can fix it up and sell it for more. And then you can also purchase something from a developer and wait till it's built. So condos are sold this way from the developer. You buy it before there's even a brick in the ground. So you really want to make sure the timing works for you, because sometimes when condos are being built or houses are being built, especially now with COVID and how supply chain issues and things are getting held up, sometimes it takes longer for the house to be built and to be finished. And that means your money is tied up longer. So be very careful about that. And then the other thing too, is we don't know if the market's going to grow the way it has been for the last few years. You might not see the type of return that you think that you might get, because mortgage rates are going up. There might not be as many buyers for a type of property that you've invested in. So everything there, of course, has risk. And then if you buy a property and you don't rent it, you just hold on to it until the market grows to the number that you want it to, and then you sell it. If that's the type of money you have and you can just, put money down, buy it outright and forget it, then absolutely, you don't need me for that. That's the easy one. And then what type of income are you looking for? So ask yourself, do you want to be a landlord, either long-term or short-term? It doesn't matter. Does being hands-off or silent investor work for you? Does the contract make sense to you when you sign it? Make sure you have someone to look that contract over before you sign it. Lawyers will do that. Real estate agents will do that. Do you have time for an energy and money to do a fix and flip? And does buying a new build work for you in your lifestyle? Or do you trust the market to grow as much? And number 5, do you have the money and time to just buy a property and wait till it shows you profit? So all these questions, you really have to figure out what works for you in your lifestyle and how much energy you have and where you want it to be. And that way you'll absolutely find out where you want to invest in, how much to invest in, for how long do you want to invest in. These are all very, very important questions that I can't answer for you. I can sit with you and go through those questions with you, but ultimately you have to know those answers. And if your answer is what makes the most money, I can't answer that, because every one of these things could make the most money within the right area, within the right tenant. You can hit that sweet spot and have 500 people raising the rent in that area because it's so desirable for having a rental in there. Or you can pick a house that, there are no renters. Nobody wants to live there. There's no jobs. So that's a whole other step that goes with these questions about research. If you do your research on the areas, that's the next thing you have to do. If you just want to say, okay, I'm going to rely on history and see what history tells me the growth will be, that's great. That's fine. You can do that as well. But all these things don't say what's going to make the most money, because I don't know what's in your pocket to begin with. So, and here I am. Absolutely. Give me a call. We can go through that when you're ready. So the other thing what I like to talk about with clients is an exit strategy. You want to have a clear vision of the future before you even get started, because this is what people do in business. Let's say they buy a restaurant and they think, okay, I'm a great chef. I'm going to open this restaurant. They open a restaurant. They have lots of people coming. It's a very successful business. They didn't realize either A, I'm tired of this. I make a lot of money. I can sell my business that I've grown for, let's say, a few years, and I can sell it for $1 million. Okay, great. That's what I want to do. I want to take the $1 million and open another restaurant. Or if I'm going to take this restaurant and the concept that I just built and took the years of building this concept, what do I do next? What's the next thing? Oh, I'm going to franchise it. I'm going to open another location. This is the exit strategy I'm talking about. If you don't want to leave the property, if you never want to sell the property, that's okay. That can also be part of the exit strategy. My exit strategy for my properties is that my children will inherit them. When I'm gone, I have no interest in reselling them. I can also have a plan B. Let's say finances get tough and I really need to sell one. That's okay. I have a plan B exit strategy. You can do it as well. But really, this is something that you should ask yourself, what's the exit strategy? So most people don't think like that either. But it's a good exercise to do. So when you think backwards with this exit strategy idea, you get the concept. If you buy something for $500,000 and then when and you rent it and the property reaches $1 million sale price, you sell. So because I've been in this industry and I've seen the last 2 years with COVID, there has been a mass exodus of people selling their income properties because the prices in the GTA are so high. So that's what's happened, that all the properties that I've had for landlords, I've put tenants in these houses from homes that have been sold while they're living there. It's not a nice thing to do, but we all have this exit strategy. So that's what I'm talking about. You can't get mad at someone for selling their income property because it's not working for them anymore. They know they can have this big pile of money in their hand. Of course they're going to sell. So that's something that you really have to keep in mind. Property reaches $1 million, I'm selling. Property reaches X number of dollars, I'm going to sell. If my prices go up, let's say inflation goes up so high, I'm not making money anymore, that could be your exit strategy. You have to think about that. Lots of people, there have been times in history that the market has plummeted and you are sitting on something that you really can't afford. You have to sell it even in a down market. So that's not what we want. That's not ideal, but that's something to consider. Also, you can do other things too. You want to retire and use the income from that sale, so you sell. Or you want to retire into that home and you kick out the tenants. These are all exit strategies of what I'm talking about. So ask yourself, what are my exit strategies? And you can pluralize that. So you can have a plan A, plan B, plan C, whichever one works for you. And depending on when, the timing is very, very important. Should I hold it for how many years? Should I sell it when it's this kind of value? Should I never sell and continue to earn forever and leverage the property to buy more properties? That's the thing that I like. So let's get into being a landlord. So there are a couple categories when you want to call yourself a landlord. You can have the shared space in your own home. That's the easy way to start. You just rent out a room, see how you like it, see how you can get familiar with vetting people this way. You can even start as an Airbnb and renting out a room in your house very, few times out of the year. You don't have to do it the whole time, depending on how much income you expect to have. If you need the income right away, absolutely, long-term is better, even though you might be able to make more money in a shorter term. Let's say, instead of, if you rented Airbnb, you might be able to make $3,000 as opposed to, let's say, $1,800 a month. if you rent it to a tenant that is full-time. So when you look at those numbers, know that that $3,000 or whatever that short-term accommodation price that you're going to get, you probably won't have someone 12 months out of the year. So really think about breaking down that number and how many months you need to rent it versus having somebody sign a 1-year lease. You can also separate a portion of your home, let's say your basement, that's the easiest, where you have a whole suite in your house. It's very hands-on. You have your eyes on the property. You can hear things. You can see the tenants. You can, talk to them too. And that way it's kind of a very hands-on approach. And you really have to like that person when you choose them to be the tenant in your property, because you are going to be very close to them. Even though you have a separate entrance, let's say, you still want to be friendly with them. Not friends, friendly. So that's another little tip right there. Also, you can rent out your whole house. So let's say if you're using me as an avatar, using me as the landlord, and let's say I want to travel. I've been in my house for 2 years with COVID. I want to get out. I want to travel. I could rent my whole house and take off, and then have them, the renters, pay for my travel. So lots of different ideas here and lots of different ways to do it. So you could absolutely just rent out your whole house, or buy a house and rent out the whole house. And generally speaking, you know what avatar you're going to get for that. You'll get a whole family to rent the whole house, not a single person. Also, can you buy a house and then separate it into multiplex, into several different units? You could do that, or you could buy a condo, or you could actually buy a whole, if you have that kind of deep pockets, to buy a multi-unit building. So there are several small buildings out there, either 4 units or 6 units, and to really see if you can make money from that. That's a great idea. I don't know if I'd start with that. I'd start with one residential property first, and then see if you like being a landlord, and then buy a multiplex. But if the opportunity presents itself, I would never say no. You should absolutely look into that. So generally speaking, what a good tenant looks like. I've been a tenant many, many years ago. My kids have been tenants. My friends have been tenants. There's a lot of really good people out there that are tenants. So when you hear the negative, same thing about landlords, you hear terrible things about, slumlords, and the connotation when somebody calls themselves a landlord, you're not necessarily a slumlord. So it's the same thing with tenants. Not every tenant is bad, and it has to do with vetting them. It has to do with what kind of property you have. It has to do with them and their lifestyle and what they are bringing to the table. And that interview process is very, very important. So it's not all about money. And I think a lot of people make that mistake where they look at how much they earn, and that's it. And that is completely wrong. You want to see, especially if somebody's going to live in your house, let's say in a basement apartment or a room, you should vet those people and really, to the best of your abilities, really put on those, or take off your rose colored glasses and really look at the people for who they are and know what kind of lifestyle they are, how they speak, how they dress. That's very, very important when you pick a tenant. So let's just see what a good tenant looks like on paper. You want somebody to have 3 times the rent in income. So if you're charging $1,000 a month in rent, they should be making at least $36,000 net, at least. So and then obviously the math is easy. If you double it, then you double what kind of income they should be earning. You also want multiple sources of income, because if one person loses their job, this is an ideal tenant for me. This could look very different for you, and it's not always going to be the case. I have single people living sometimes in my properties, and they've turned out to be the best tenants because they make a high income, and because there's less wear and tear on the property, and because we talk about why you want to rent the property. Why are you here? Are you bringing your family from overseas? Do you have a wife waiting? Do you have a girlfriend that you're going to bring in? So all these questions you have to ask them. What are their exit strategies? How long do they want to stay? Even if it's a long-term tenant, that is very, very important to ask that question. So multiple sources of income. If it's a single person, it's okay. If they make a lot of money, it's okay. They have photos of their current residence. This is an interesting thing. If you have multiple people asking to rent your property, that's something that you can ask them to show you. How are you going to keep the property? I want to see your house now. It's very interesting to see those photos if you can get them. You can't really insist. You can ask, can I see these pictures? A lot of people don't want to show you, and there's a good reason. So if you're using your instincts and you don't want them, that might be a good way to, see if they'll actually give you the photos. They have good references, personal and professional, and multiple references, not just one. You have to phone, you have to talk to the people and ask those questions, and really read between the lines too when you talk to them. Check their social media posts. This is why I really like to post my properties on something like Facebook. You get to see their profiles, so it's really good to see that. Also, LinkedIn is very important if they're a professional, to see if they're on LinkedIn and see who they know, how many people they know, see what they're up to, right? Also, the way they present themselves, if they have clean shoes, clean car. My car is not the cleanest, but really, my house is similar. You know what I'm saying? So my car is not the cleanest. My house is really not the cleanest either, but it's neat and tidy. And I, have everything in its right place. So I'm not the worst. But it really tells you a lot. They don't make demands when showing the property. So if they're walking through the property and right away they're already saying, oh, I don't like this. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, what's going on with this? Oh, what's going on with that? That's the type of person they're going to be as a tenant. So keep an eye out for that, especially if the house is nice. If there's really no issues and they're all small things, I wouldn't take on that tenant. That's my own personal preference. Because I know what kind of demands they can make later on, and you don't want to be a slave to those tenants. So also understand, and you both want the same thing on the lease. So when you have your terms, sit with them and explain it to them. Absolutely no smoking, absolutely no pets, all these things, that they understand that this is not something that is okay with you if you bring in a pet later on. Make sure that you can't stop them, but at least you can make those, really, you can say, these are very important things to me. And really, after everything, after you've done all the research and you've looked over the paperwork and everything, trust your instincts, because that will tell you a lot. It'll tell you a lot. Always trust your instincts. Yeah, I even wrote it twice because it's so important. So all these things you can do while you are interviewing them. Check the way they dress. How clean is their vehicle? Call the past landlords. Call all the references, even the personal references. Of course, they're going to say they're wonderful people. And honestly, call them and look them up online. Check your social media posts, and always, always, always trust your instincts. I know my pictures are kind of funny, but honestly, those are the biggest issues that I have with my landlords. Smoking pot, not the prostitutes, that's just a joke. But the dogs, the pets, and the marijuana is just, I can't tell you how many landlords talk to me about that. So it's important for you to do that really good interview at the beginning before you even let them in the property. So now, what does a good tenant look like during the tenancy? Good tenants pay the rent on time, keep the property clean and good condition. They follow the lease terms. They communicate any maintenance issues, or they just communicate with you in general. They aren't high maintenance, so they're not asking you to change a light bulb. Oh, I have a spider. Believe me, there are tenants out there that do that. They don't let anyone move in without the landlord's written consent. It's very, very important that you put that into the lease. They obtain and keep their renter's insurance up to date, and they renew or want to stay longer. So that is a question mark, because it's up to you. How do you want to deal with this tenant? Do you want them to stay longer? Do you want them to continue on with the tenancy? What does that look like? So those questions, There's a lot of detail in there. I can go through it more in detail with you, but for now, these are the questions that you want to ask tenants, or you want to make sure this is what a tenant looks like once you have them. Honestly, I have to say this, if you have a long-term tenant, a 1-year lease or longer, the landlord and tenant board in Ontario is not to the landlord's favor. It is very hard to get a tenant out. It is very hard to get them to pay the rent when they're not paying. It's very hard to evict them. So you have to really do all this research before you take on a tenant to know who they are, and they actually are who they say they are. There has been incidences where I've had people come and look at properties. On paper, they look great. They've done everything right, but face to face, that person is lying. Their place of work does not exist. The paperwork that, the letter that they got from their employer, the company does not exist. Maybe when I phoned, and yes, there was somebody answering the phone at the other end, that could be anybody. But when I researched that company name and the company phone number, it did not exist. So things like that, where you really have to dive in a little bit further because your instincts are kicking in and you know there's something fishy there. You have to make those phone calls. So just saying. So this is exactly what we're talking about. Scared of getting a bad tenant. This is a quick checklist you can use to pick the best property. Partner with a qualified real estate agent. I am a second pair of eyes or third pair of eyes, or whatever you want to do, where I can vet the tenant for you. At least I can give you more information about the tenant. You have a great lease with lawful clauses and really detailed parameters that will protect you, like storage and garbage removal. Excuse me. You can check in often with the tenants. You check in with the neighbors of the property to say, hey, how are the neighbors? Are they loud? Do they have people coming in and out of the house all day? Neighbors are the best to talk to and to keep happy. So my rental properties, I always give my neighbors a little bit of, something at Christmas, something at whatever holiday. I have apple trees in one of my properties. I give the neighbors apples at the end of the year, things like that. You also should write into the lease that you want to come and see the property one time a year, at least to check, let's say, the fire or the smoke alarms, things like that. So having your eyes on the property is very, very important. Or have a property manager go in, and it should be in your lease. Let's say you buy a property in Florida. That property manager should be going in every year and reporting back to you with photos if the tenant allows. And if the property is in bad shape, you have to make sure you get that eviction process right away. Don't wait. And know your lease, know what you've written in your lease and understand it, and revert back to it when you have a problem. And know the law, and really you can start eviction. I don't want to go down that road. I hope nobody, knock on wood, you don't get a bad tenant, but this is something that you have to be okay with. It's always a possibility, and don't be afraid of it, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so qualify your tenants. So I want to go back. This is the thing that I guess I like doing is to think backwards to have a better future. So this is to do with exit strategy. So it's also not really exit strategy, but also to prepare yourself better. So I wanted to give you a couple examples of real-time clients that I've had and real-time landlords that I've helped. So this is actually a few years, I don't even know, maybe 6 years ago now. So this is my first example is a woman who is recently separated, and she wanted to buy property that had a rental suite in it. So we went to go look, we saw lots of houses. She was open to converting a basement if it wasn't already done. But what we found was a house that already had a separate entrance to the basement in the back. The house was small, it was a bungalow. She was perfectly happy with that. because her kids were going to move out eventually and she didn't want a big giant house, and she wanted to have it in the right area. She loved Burlington in this case. We found a place in Burlington. She's still there. She's very, very happy. She loves it. Same tenant. So she knew what her avatar was. She said, I want somebody quiet. I want an older woman. Maybe if she's retired, I don't care if she has an income. I want to see if she can afford the rent. I'm going to charge this month. And she put out the ad, and sure enough, this is what she got. She got an older woman, single. Her husband died, passed away a few years before that. She wanted to be closer to her daughter, who had a child at that point. I think she has 2 now. And the mom goes over to the daughter's house and helps with the kids all day. She's very quiet. She mainly eats at her daughter's house. There's no cooking smells. She's out most of the day, every day. And of course, she goes to sleep early. She doesn't have the TV on loud. This is her perfect tenant, and that's who she got. So she's very, very happy. And the tenant is still there. So example number 2, I have a landlord that has a 3-bedroom bungalow. His avatar, which he said to me, he prefers a family. This is a house in Mississauga, quite a big house. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath bungalow as well. He always envisioned a family would live there. And the tenants that I've put in there before have been families. But right now we said, okay, let's see if we can get another family. What we got, and we had lots of people come in, look through the house, had a few people apply. They didn't meet the landlord's idea of the perfect tenant. So, and there's no reason to say no to people like that. It's really your preference as a landlord to say yes or no. Doesn't make a lot of people happy. They don't like to hear it, but all you have to say when you have someone that is not right for you as a landlord, you can say, thank you for applying. We're going to go in a different direction. You can be very vague when you give them why. You don't have to say, oh, because you have too many kids, or because you have this, or because of that. Absolutely not. You say, thank you very much. You're just not what we're looking for. That's all. And and they'll ask you more questions too, like why? What can I do better? What did I do wrong? And you can say, you just have not met the criteria of the landlord. That's it. That's all you have to say. No big explanation. You did nothing wrong. So get ready for that. That's going to happen too sometimes. So really what he preferred was a family, possibly family of 4. And really he didn't want them to stay for more than 5 years. That's the life of the house. The house will be sold. The house will be gone after 5 years. So what they actually got a gay couple, and they both make very, very good money. And they have an older parent. So one of them has a mom that the house needs to be a little converted. They needed a ramp in the front. They needed a bar in the shower, which I highly recommend everybody put in anyway for any rental. And really, both parties are very happy. The older couple, the gay couple, found this beautiful house that's excellent for their mom for now. Even if the house is going to be torn down in 5 years, it's probably going to be longer than that. If the mother passes away, they have an exit strategy of leaving and saying, okay, we're going to retire. Now we can retire. And they're going to go to wherever they want to go. Maybe they want to travel. So you never know if that exit strategy is actually going to happen, but you have an idea of who your avatar is. And honestly, I just did this a few months ago. Those tenants are spectacular. I want to be friends with them. That's really hard too sometimes, where you want to be friends with them, but don't do it. You can be friendly, but don't be friends, because then you get into that gray area of like, oh, can we do this with the property, or can I do that? Or, maybe we can't make our rent this month. Are you okay with that? So really just be friendly. Don't be friends. And then this is a third example. So let's say a vacation property. So the avatar was themselves and their family, because they wanted to have a place that they could go on vacation. So their ask was they wanted to have a vacation property a maximum 2 hours away driving. It's big enough to host their entire family at the same time. a property in an area that is possible to retire to. That's a big ask. And a big yard with a secondary building if possible. And obviously in a vacation spot where people could, this is a short-term accommodation that other people say, oh yeah, it's right beside the beach, or it's right beside the ski lodge, or it's right beside whatever. And then that's when you buy in that area. So location is very important. What they got, 4-bedroom property with a large yard and a barn, but it's a fixer-upper. So it came in below budget. It needed a lot of money to renovate. But guess what? The buyer's handy. So they really enjoyed renovating the property. And guess who the avatar is? This is my rental property in Prince Edward County. So if you want to rent it, call me and I'll set you up. Or you can go to Airbnb. If you want the link for the Airbnb, I'll send it to you later. But anyway, this to me, I can't tell you, I call it my serendipity house because it means so much to me that all of the stars aligned when I bought this house. So I hit every one of my asks, and that is very rare to have everything. Usually you might have to adjust 1 or 2 things and don't get what you want. But ultimately, I got everything on my list. So it's very important to write that list. So I just wanted to say thank you. Keep the conversation going, please. If you want to get more information, I have other workshops. Please send me a text anytime if you have any questions. I can absolutely use your questions. I have my YouTube channel with lots of information in there for people just like you. With rental properties, with lots of terms, real estate terms, financial terms. I do it with my friend Araceli, and I always need content too. So if you have questions, please ask, and we might even put it on the show. Really book a 30-minute consultation if you're ready to go. I'm at your disposal. So please feel free to call me and talk about anything. And don't think that your questions are strange or stupid, or you're getting started. This is a wonderful time to have someone at your disposal like me that I can answer these questions, get you on the right path. I hope you learned something from this workshop. I really enjoyed doing it. Thank you so much for being patient and watching the whole thing. And please, by anything you need, please contact me and we'll have a conversation. And I look forward to it. So thank you very much again, and hope you have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye.